April 29th, 1945. Midday. Dachau, Germany. The gunfire has already moved on. American soldiers stand in a place where the war feels abruptly out of rhythm. There is no advancing line, no resistance, no clear next objective. The camp is secured, but the air remains tense, as if something unresolved still occupies the space. The men do not speak much. Some look outward, scanning habitually, trained by months of combat. Others look inward, eyes fixed on nothing in particular. A few remove their helmets briefly, then put them back on, unsure why they took them off in the first place. This is not a moment of victory. It is a moment of pause. Dachau has been entered. The gates are behind them now. The scale of what has been uncovered is still being processed, not as facts or figures, but as fragments. Images that do not arrange themselves neatly. Smells that linger. Silences that feel deliberate. And beneath all of it, a growing realization begins to take shape. This place did not run itself. As the hours pass, the camp transitions from discovery to control. Orders are given. Positions are set. Survivors are stabilized. Guards are detained. Everything follows procedure. On the surface. But beneath that structure, something else is happening, something harder to measure. The soldiers are confronting not just evidence of atrocity, but the proximity of those associated with it. Men who wore uniforms. Men who carried authority here only days earlier. The war has trained these soldiers to identify threats clearly. Enemy fire is met with force. Resistance is answered decisively. Dachau does not fit that pattern. The guards who are detained offer little resistance. They are disarmed quickly. Some appear resigned. Others avoid eye contact. They sit or stand under watch, stripped of authority but still present. That presence changes the atmosphere. The soldiers feel it immediately. You can almost sense the tension shifting from shock to something heavier, something unresolved, the kind of tension that does not demand action, but restraint. Officers move deliberately through the camp, aware that this moment requires more than tactical control. It requires composure, discipline, judgment. Not just for the sake of order, but for the record, because everyone here understands, even if they do not say it aloud, that Dachau will not remain a private memory. What happens in these hours will be examined later. Interpreted. Judged. That awareness shapes behavior. The soldiers follow orders carefully. The guards are kept under watch. Separation is maintained. Procedures are documented. The system holds. But questions begin to surface quietly. Not spoken. Not resolved. Simply present. What does justice look like in a place like this? What does restraint mean when the evidence is undeniable? And who decides how such moments should be judged? These are not questions anyone expects to answer today. Yet Dachau has a way of forcing them forward. As the afternoon stretches on, the camp feels suspended between what has been revealed and what is yet to be reckoned with. The soldiers remain in place, holding not just the perimeter, but a moral line that feels unusually fragile. The liberation of Dachau has exposed crimes. What it exposes next is something more uncomfortable. As the afternoon deepens, Dachau becomes a place of observation. Not only by those who have survived it, but by those now responsible for what happens next. American officers move deliberately through the camp, aware that every decision here carries weight beyond the immediate moment. Orders are clear. Guards are to be detained, not harmed. Survivors are to be protected. The camp is to remain under control. It sounds straightforward. In practice, it is not. The soldiers on the ground are no longer reacting to combat. They are responding to proximity, to the undeniable closeness of people connected to what has just been uncovered. The war has given them a language for violence. Dachau demands a language for restraint. That distinction matters. The guards are kept under watch in temporary holding areas. They are disarmed, separated, accounted for. No physical force is required. The absence of resistance does not make the task easier. It makes it more complex. Because restraint feels optional only when no one is watching. Here, everyone is watching. Survivors stand nearby, some silently observing, others turning away. They do not shout. They do not intervene. Their presence alone is enough to alter the emotional balance of the space. American soldiers feel it immediately. This is no longer just about enforcing military order. It is about demonstrating it. Officers recognize the danger. They rotate guards frequently. No one remains in a position too long. Distance is maintained. Pairs are assigned rather than individuals. Accountability is shared. These decisions are not written in manuals. They are improvised responses to a situation few had imagined. A captain pauses beside a group of enlisted men and speaks quietly. His tone is calm. He does not threaten discipline. He reminds them of it. Not as punishment, but as identity. They are American soldiers. They represent something larger than the moment they are standing in. That reminder carries weight precisely because it is understated. The men understand what is being asked of them. They are not being asked to forget what they have seen. They are being asked to hold it. That burden settles unevenly. Some soldiers withdraw inward, focusing on procedure. Others become hyper-aware of their own reactions, monitoring every thought for signs of loss of control. This is discipline under strain. Not tested by enemy fire, but by moral proximity. The camp amplifies everything. Sounds carry. Glances linger. Movements feel exposed. There is no place to release tension privately. Every choice feels visible. And visibility brings judgment. Even without cameras present, the soldiers know records will be made. Reports written. Questions asked. Dachau is already becoming more than a military site. It is becoming evidence. That awareness shapes behavior in subtle ways. Orders are followed precisely. Interactions are minimal. Procedures are repeated to ensure consistency. The system holds, but it is holding something fragile. Because beneath the discipline lies an unresolved question that no one can fully set aside. Is restraint here an act of justice or a postponement of it? No one answers. They simply continue. As the day edges toward evening, the camp remains under control. The guards remain detained. Survivors remain protected. Nothing outwardly dramatic occurs. And yet, the weight of the moment does not lift. If anything, it becomes heavier. Because discipline, once placed under a microscope, reveals not only what is done, but what is resisted. And Dachau is revealing more than anyone expected. As evening approaches, Dachau enters another phase of stillness. The urgency of the first hours has faded, replaced by something more difficult to manage time. The immediate tasks have been completed. The camp is secured. The guards are contained. Survivors are no longer in immediate danger. What remains is judgment. Not formal judgment, not trials or verdicts, but the quieter, more persistent kind, the kind that unfolds internally, without witnesses or resolution. The soldiers feel it settling in. Some sit on crates or along the edges of the barracks, helmets beside them, rifles resting against walls. Others remain standing, unable to relax. No one speaks loudly. Conversation, when it happens, is brief and restrained. This is not exhaustion from battle. It is exhaustion from awareness. The men have been trained to see the world in terms of objectives and outcomes. Advance or hold, secure or withdraw. Dachau refuses those categories. It presents evidence without instruction, reality without guidance. And that forces a question no one expected to confront so directly. Who decides how justice begins? The guards remain nearby, under watch. Their presence continues to complicate everything. They are no longer authority figures. They are not combatants. They are not civilians. They exist in a narrow space between categories. Officers review their options carefully. Orders from higher command are expected, but not yet received. In the meantime, responsibility remains local. Decisions must be made with incomplete guidance. That uncertainty sharpens the tension. Some soldiers begin to ask quiet questions, not aloud, but among themselves. What happens next? Who takes custody? How will this be explained later? These are not philosophical discussions. They are practical concerns with moral weight. A lieutenant reviews his notes repeatedly, making small corrections. He understands that language matters, that how events are recorded will shape how they are remembered. Precision becomes a form of protection, not just for the guards, but for the truth itself. Survivors move cautiously through the camp as evening deepens. Some stop to watch the guards. Others deliberately avoid looking. Their reactions are varied, but none are casual. They understand judgment too. They have lived under it. The American soldiers sense this shared awareness. It deepens the pressure. They are not only enforcing order, they are being measured by those who know what the absence of order looks like. This awareness does not lead to speeches or declarations. It leads to silence. Silence becomes a tool. It slows reaction. It creates space. It allows time to pass without forcing a decision that cannot be undone. Night approaches. With it comes another test. Because darkness removes visibility, it reduces oversight. It invites misinterpretation. The safeguards that function in daylight become harder to maintain. Officers prepare for it carefully. Guard rotations are adjusted. Lighting is arranged. Instructions are repeated. Nothing is left to assumption. Still, the question remains. Not whether justice will come, but how it will arrive, and at what cost. As the camp settles into night, Dachau feels less like a place of revelation and more like a place of reckoning, not yet resolved, not yet decided, only held. And holding something this heavy, for this long, has consequences of its own. Night changes the character of Dachau. Floodlights come on around the perimeter, casting hard circles of light across the ground. Shadows stretch between the barracks. Familiar outlines become distorted. The camp feels quieter but not calmer. For the soldiers, this is the most vulnerable stretch. Fatigue sets in. The body slows. The mind wanders. The discipline that held through the day must now survive the night, when oversight thins and small decisions carry disproportionate weight. Officers are aware of it. They do not wait for problems to appear. Guard rotations are shortened. No one is left alone near the detainees. Pairs are reassigned frequently, not for efficiency, but for balance. Presence becomes a form of control. This is leadership without spectacle. A sergeant notices a soldier lingering too long at the edge of the holding area. He does not reprimand him. He redirects him quietly, assigning him another task. The exchange is brief, almost invisible, but it matters. Because restraint here is not enforced through punishment. It is maintained through awareness. The guards remain under watch, silent, contained. Some sit with heads lowered, others stare ahead, unmoving. Their stillness does not relieve tension, it concentrates it. The soldiers are conscious of the asymmetry of power. They understand how easily the situation could shift. That knowledge sharpens their focus. Survivors sense the fragility of the moment as well. They keep their distance. They speak in low tones. Some choose to remain near the barracks rather than approach the holding areas. They have learned what happens when control collapses. That shared understanding creates an uneasy equilibrium. No one pushes it. Late into the night, a brief exchange of raised voices echoes from one section of the camp. It stops almost immediately. Officers move in quickly, assess the situation, and disperse those involved. No escalation follows, but the moment lingers. It is a reminder of how close restraint sits to its breaking point. The soldiers feel it. This is not a test of courage. It is a test of endurance, of patience, of the ability to remain measured when instinct urges otherwise. For some, this is the hardest assignment of the war. Not because it demands action, but because it demands inaction. As the hours pass, the camp holds. The line does not break. Nothing dramatic occurs. No incident defines the night. And yet, this absence becomes the defining feature. Because in a place shaped by unchecked power, restraint itself becomes meaningful. By the time the sky begins to lighten, the soldiers know they have passed through something rare, a moment when control was not automatic, when discipline had to be chosen repeatedly, without reward or recognition. The night ends quietly. But it leaves behind a realization that will not fade easily. What happened at Dachau is not only about what was revealed, it is also about what was resisted. And that resistance, deliberate, fragile, human, will soon become part of the story historians struggle to describe. Morning returns to Dachau without ceremony. The light is pale and thin, settling over the camp as if unsure where to land. Soldiers change shifts quietly. Boots move slower now. Faces show the marks of a night spent holding something heavy in place. The camp has not changed, but the men have. Orders arrive with more clarity. Command structure tightens. Paperwork begins to accumulate reports, names, timelines. Dachau is transitioning from a site of discovery to a site of record. That transition matters, because once something is written down, it becomes fixed. And what is fixed can be judged. Officers review events carefully, choosing language with care. Not to obscure but to be precise. Precision is the only protection against distortion, against simplification. Some soldiers are relieved by the return of structure. Others find it unsettling. Structure implies that what happened here will be revisited, questioned, possibly criticized. They understand that restraint does not always look heroic in hindsight. Survivors move with slightly more confidence now. Some sit quietly in small groups. Others rest where they can. American medics continue their work, careful not to overwhelm bodies weakened by years of deprivation. Discipline takes a different form here. It becomes medical, administrative, procedural. The guards are prepared for transfer. They are escorted in small groups, under supervision. No words are exchanged, no gestures are made. The process is intentionally uneventful. That absence of drama is deliberate, because by now, everyone understands the stakes. Anything that happens here will be interpreted later by investigators, by historians, by a public far removed from the immediacy of the moment. The soldiers feel the distance already forming. They know that future judgments will be made without the smells, the silences, the exhaustion, without the pressure of standing between survivors and perpetrators in the same confined space. That awareness creates a quiet defensiveness, not against accountability, but against simplification. One officer pauses before signing a report. He rereads a paragraph, then adjusts a phrase. He is not changing what happened. He is trying to capture it accurately. Accuracy becomes the final form of discipline. As the guards are moved away, the tension inside the camp eases slightly. Not because justice has been resolved, but because immediacy has been reduced. Distance allows thought to replace reaction. By late morning, Dachau feels steadier, not lighter, steadier. The soldiers know they will not remain here long. Other units will take over. Civil authorities and relief organizations will arrive. The war itself is nearing its end. But these hours, this uneasy pause between liberation and judgment, belong to them. And they know it. They also know that what they carried through this pause will not be visible in photographs or official summaries. It will exist only in memory. And memory, unlike records, is never neutral. As the day continues, one question lingers quietly beneath everything else. When history looks back at Dachau, what will it choose to see? By the time American units begin preparing to move on, Dachau has settled into a different kind of silence. It is no longer the silence of shock. It is the silence of aftermath. The camp is now firmly under control. Procedures are in place. Authority has been transferred upward. What remains behind is not uncertainty, but complexity. The soldiers who were present in those first days understand that what they experienced will not translate cleanly into history books, because history prefers clarity. Dachau offers none. In the months and years that follow, accounts of the liberation will circulate. Photographs will be studied, testimonies collected, timelines reconstructed. Scholars will debate what happened when it happened and how it should be understood. But those debates will unfold far from the moment itself, far from the exhaustion, far from the silence, far from the weight of standing inside a place where moral categories feel insufficient. What continues to trouble historians is not simply what occurred after Dachau was liberated, but how to judge it without flattening the experience of those who were there. Justice, discipline, restraint. These words sound stable on paper. In practice, they were fragile. The soldiers at Dachau were not philosophers. They were not judges. They were men trained for war who found themselves guarding a moral boundary rather than a physical one. They did not resolve the questions Dachau raised. They contained them. And containment, while necessary, is rarely satisfying. For some, the restraint shown in those hours stands as proof that discipline can survive even the most extreme provocation. For others, it raises uncomfortable questions about whether restraint always serves justice or merely delays it. Both interpretations persist. Neither fully captures the reality of the moment. What is often missed is the cost of restraint itself, the effort required to hold back instinct, the strain of choosing procedure over impulse when the evidence feels overwhelming. That effort leaves no monument. It leaves only ambiguity. Dachau forces a recognition that war does not end cleanly, that liberation does not arrive with moral closure, that even the most justified cause can produce moments that resist easy judgment. And perhaps that is why Dachau continues to unsettle. Not because its crimes are debated, but because the human response to them defies resolution. The liberation exposed evil. The hours after exposed limits. Limits of endurance. Limits of judgment. Limits of certainty. In that sense, Dachau remains unfinished not as a place, but as a question. A question that does not ask for outrage. It asks for reflection.